When you're learning a new language and you just wonder, how good am I really? Are you a beginner, maybe intermediate, are you fluent? It's a question we all ask, but the answer is usually kind of fuzzy. So today, let's demystify the whole thing. I mean, really, what does fluent even mean? It's one of those words that feels solid until you try to pin it down. Ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers. My idea of conversational could be your beginner, and neither of us would be wrong. It's totally subjective.
And look, this wasn't just a headache for us language learners. Imagine you're a school, or an employer, or even a government. How do you measure someone's language skills consistently? For a long time, you couldn't. It was all just a big, confusing guessing game.
So, to fix this mess, a bunch of experts got together to create a universal standard. Think of it like a measuring stick that works for any language, anywhere. It's called the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or, as we'll call it, the CEFRL. Now, the really important word here is guide. The CEFRL isn't some big, scary test or a specific way to teach. Nope. It's a framework that simply describes what you can do with a language at different levels. And while it started in Europe, it's pretty much the global standard now. And this whole system didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It took years of work by the Council of Europe, starting way back in the late 80s. It was officially published in 2001, and from there, it just took off, becoming the gold standard we rely on today. Okay, so here's where it all clicks into place. The whole system is beautifully simple at its core. It's broken down into 3 big levels. A is for the basic user, B is for the independent user, and C is for the proficient user. That's it, A, B, C. This is our roadmap.
All right, let's climb this ladder, shall we? We're starting at the very beginning. Level A, the basic user. This is where every single one of us starts our language journey.
Think of this as your survival kit. You've got the essentials down. You can say hello, introduce yourself, ask someone where they're from, and handle really simple, slow conversations. You're building that all-important foundation. But even at this basic level, there's a difference, right? At A1, or Breakthrough, you're really just focused on immediate needs, like ordering a coffee. But once you hit A2, Way Stage, you can actually handle simple, routine exchanges about familiar topics. It's a small step, but it feels huge. And this is a perfect example of what learning at this level looks like. It's all about those fundamental building blocks, getting the basic vocabulary and grammar right so you can start putting simple sentences together. Okay, so you've laid the groundwork. Now things get really interesting. Welcome to Level B, the independent user. This is where you start to feel like you can actually navigate the world in this new language.
And believe me, this is a huge leap. You're not just surviving anymore, you're actually communicating. You can follow the main points of a conversation, handle pretty much any situation you'd run into while traveling, and even have spontaneous chats without everything grinding to a halt.
And just like before, Level B is split in 2. B1, or threshold, is that amazing point where you feel confident traveling. But B2, Vantage, that's the level so many of us are aiming for. This is where you can have a real conversation with a native speaker, and it's not a struggle for either of you. It just flows. So naturally, the kinds of things you practice get way more practical. We're moving on from simple fill-in-the-blanks to real-world situations, like figuring out what to say at a doctor's office. It requires more specific vocabulary and thinking on your feet.
And now, we reach the summit, Level C, the Proficient User. This is where language goes from being a tool to being an art form.
At this level, you're not just understanding what's being said, you're understanding what isn't being said. You get the jokes, the sarcasm, the subtext. You can read complex articles and use the language effortlessly in pretty much any situation, social, academic, or professional. The difference here is pretty subtle but also profound. At C1, you're a pro. You're highly effective and can handle complex work or academic tasks. But C2? Well, C2 is mastery. It's that near-native ability where you understand basically everything you hear or read, and you can express yourself with incredible precision and style. And just look at this. At Level C, you're not just reading an article, you're analyzing it. You're expected to understand the author's tone, their style, their intent. It's all about critical thinking in the language itself. Okay, that was a fun climb from A1 to C2, but you might be thinking, so what? Why does this alphabet soup actually matter to me in my life? Well, it matters because it gives all of us a common language to talk about language. For you, the learner, it's a clear roadmap. For schools, it's a guide for building their courses.
And for employers, it's finally a reliable way to know what someone means when they put speaks French on their resume. At the end of the day, all these letters and numbers, they're just a tool, right? They help us measure progress on a much deeper journey. It's about understanding not just words, but a whole new way of seeing the world, which this quote captures perfectly.
So the CEFRL takes that fuzzy, vague idea of fluency and makes it real, makes it something we can actually work towards. It gives us a map for the journey. So after all that, I'll ask you one more time, what's your level and where are you headed next?